Yo, what's going on, guys? Welcome back to Bullony Basketball. Here today with my guy, familiar face on the channel, my man Willy G. How's it going, my man?
Brother, always good to talk some ball with you. So happy to be back on the show, man. Appreciate you having me on for a few.
Yes, sir. And I feel like we have a good show today. It's going to be a lot of different little NBA game segments. We of course have the main mini game at the end, and then as we've been doing this season, the honor of the week. So it's going to be a good episode, I think. So let's. I think we'll start off with the first segment, which I'm calling the all business or no business segment. And so I'm basically going to I have five statements here based on how the season's gone so far, maybe what we can expect, and you're gonna say like all business if you think the thing I say is gonna check out. So this isn't one of them on here, but if I said LeBron is gonna average 10 points a game this season, and you said, oh, he definitely is, then you'd say all business. If you say nope, then no business. And then you kind of would briefly say why. So it should be pretty straightforward. So yeah,
Okay.
we can
Sounds good. Ready?
we'll start off with this one with one of the hottest teams in the league so far this season has been the Cleveland Cavaliers. And the first one I'm going to say is the Cleveland Cavaliers are a championship contender. All business or no
Oh,
business?
that's all business, man. I don't know if you remember last year on one of our previous conversations, we were talking about their hot start, and I told you I was like, I was thinking they'd be 3 4 years down the line, for the big contenders, and I had them, at the start of last year as a dark horse, but still in that contender conversation. So this year, that just solidifies it that they're for sure a contender, not even a dark horse. I'd even say they're probably the favorite to come out of the East right now, if you asking me. So yeah, that's all business. They're standing on it.
I would agree. I also think it's all business. It's interesting because the way the East is shaped up so far, like there's a lot of teams with new moving parts, like Philly, New
Mhm.
York. Teams that you just don't know what to expect, like the Bucks. I mean, the Pacers haven't looked great. Now Orlando is missing Paulo, so it's like you really think about it up there. Like the Cavs and Boston are like the only two teams up there that have kind of some consistency with their core.
Mhm.
So I think that's why a lot of people are, like, you know what, maybe it takes some time with these type of cores, and this might be their I wouldn't say like their best chance yet because they still have a pretty young team, but like it's the best chance that they've had thus far with this group. So,
But yeah,
yeah,
yeah. No, they're crazy good, and they're crazy fun to watch. League pass team for sure. So all business is standing on it.
yeah, I would agree. All business. Obviously, my guy Donovan Mitchell's played well, and even Evan Mobley has really stepped up too. So,
Mhm.
shout out Ty Jerome too. He's been playing well. But the second one I'll do, this one it's a little more Denver Nuggets related, so I'm sure you'll appreciate that. Um, but it is an interesting one because right now Jamal Murray is averaging, I believe he's averaging 16, a little over 16 points a game on the season. Um, Jamal Murray will average 20 points per game this season. All business or no business? This is a tough one, huh?
It is a very tough one, man, because my heart wants to say, that it's business, but what I've seen so far this year, and my guy is still coming into the season out of shape, and I know historically he's always been out of shape and has a slow start, but obviously right now he's out for concussion protocol, so that shouldn't be anything long term. But I mean, how's his knee? How's his calf? That's my concern as not just a Nugget fan, but someone who enjoys watching. Probably the best two-man duo in the NBA, at least for the last couple seasons, right? But 20 points per game. I believe last year was his career high, and I think he finished it at 21.7 or somewhere around there, if I'm not mistaken. So just barely beat that. And they're going to depend on him a lot. So no business, man. I don't see it.
Dang.
I hate saying that, and I don't see it, man. I just don't. I think he's going to struggle throughout the season. I think playoff time he'll be playoff Murray just because I think he's the kind of competitor that needs a chip on his shoulder and needs that pressure. So long term thinking, the playoffs when it matters, I think he'll be fine. I think he's probably the biggest playoff riser in the history of basketball, right? Or at least one of the top five, if not the highest. Sorry. So I'm not concerned long term, but for the regular season, and I do expect him to not play as consistently. He'll probably get in the 50, maybe 60 range as much as far as games played go. So I don't see it. No business. He's gonna get like 18 points a game.
Yeah, I see. That's why I wanted to put that on here because I know obviously you being a Nuggets fan, like probably would be if it was really close, you'd definitely give him the edge. But I think 20 point per game mark right now, it looks a little like I don't know if he'll get back there, like at least this season. But we do know that he steps it up more in the playoffs regardless. So I mean, in the grand scheme of things, Nikola Jokic is good enough that he can get you to the playoffs by himself. It doesn't matter what he has. So as long as Jamal Murray is, playing like the Murray we know in the playoffs, then the 20 point per game thing won't matter too much. But I
Mm-hmm.
would probably agree with you. I do think I'm going to say no business because I think he will probably be about 18 or so points a game. I think
Yeah.
he'll definitely pick it up. Like it's just probably won't be until like after the in-season tournament, I would say.
Yeah. Yeah, I think he's got to get his conditioning up. The first thing, he can't get past guys anymore. He gets winded. Their first overtime game versus the Raptors, his hands were on his knee the whole time. So he's got to get into shape, and I see him doing it also. Maybe not in season ish. I don't think so. Maybe post All Star.
Mm.
He gets a good week and a half or so off, but he'll be fine. Come playoff time. At least I'm telling myself that he'll be fine come playoff
Mm.
time.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, I know even last season, like he did have maybe not the typical Jamal Murray showing, but like even then, like still hit 2 game winners like in the playoffs and
Mhm.
still had like high moments like that. Like I think he's gonna be back like to normal Murray in the playoffs. But as you
He
mentioned,
was fine all last season until the
oh,
playoffs, man. Like I don't know
yeah,
what happened. He just ran out of gas, I guess.
I don't know, because I mean, even like I don't know, I don't want to bring up like how that season ended, like because I feel like it's just like one of those type of years, where it's like,
Mm,
but it just seemed like it was just everything like fell apart at the wrong time, right? So,
yeah.
but you mentioned like with Jamal Murray and being in shape. One team that's been in bad shape so far this season is the Milwaukee Bucks. So the third one I'll ask you is the Milwaukee Bucks need to blow it up. All business if you agree, no business if you don't disagree, or if you disagree.
They're what 1-6, I believe, right? Is that what the record is as of right now? 1-6, or
I believe they
they're
are one
pretty
and
bad, right?
five. They're currently playing the Cavs
Yeah.
as we are speaking, and it's close, so they could be 1-6 by the end of the show. But yeah,
Man, that's tough, man. Because I do think on paper they have a good roster. I I don't know what they were doing last season when they fired their coach and hired Doc. I mean, I think Doc has shown that apart from the '08 Boston team that won the championship, he's not a good coach. At least I don't think he is. So I don't think they need to blow it up. So I'm gonna say no business, but I do think they need a coaching change. I think Doc is it. You know, post Boston, he hasn't done anything. He's the only coach that's given up multiple 3-1 leads. Playoffs and playoff series. And the Clippers totally flamed out with him at the Realm. And it was a whole mess all in Philadelphia as well. So I don't think the rosters are a problem. I just think it's Doc. I don't think he's a coach anymore in this league. So I'm gonna say no business. They just need to get rid of Doc.
yeah. I mean, as much as I do agree with that, I do think that Doc being the coach of that team makes no sense. It seems like the team's really not on the same like wavelength as Doc either. I guess it's like hard to determine like what exactly blowing it up would mean. Like, would that mean like
Mm,
cleaning house completely, or just like getting rid of one key player so it's like a new kind of core? And so for that reason, like because it's blowing it up, I think is just making one major move. And like when I'm thinking of blowing it up, I'm talking like I'm thinking of Giannis, I'm thinking of Dame, and I'm also thinking of Chris Middleton just because he's been there for so long too. Like I
Mhm.
would say they probably do need to blow it up. Like, and obviously like we already know like everyone's looking at Giannis like with a microscope so far this season, and there's been rumors that Dame never wanted to be in Milwaukee. He really still doesn't look all too happy to be in Milwaukee. This is the second year now. Like he still
Mhm.
hasn't totally adjusted. And then Chris Middleton's just, even though he's very similar to like what we said about Jamal Murray, like he steps it up in the playoffs, like he's just not healthy, like hardly ever the last few years. So because of that, it's like the rest of this team is just very old, like around them. Like they have a
Mhm.
very old team. So it's like you're not going to be able to make many other moves unless one of those things happen. And whether it's Giannis saying, you know what, like I want out, like I want to go somewhere else, or they make a move to please Giannis, on top of maybe the coaching change again, which would be crazy because that's the fourth coach in 4 years.
Right.
That's why I probably would say they do need to blow it up, which sounds bad, but it's like they kind of made too many mistakes, you know?
Yeah. No, I mean, I guess you're right. It depends on how you define blowing it up. But I guess to me, when I heard blow up, I hear fire sale, trade everything and rebuild. And that includes Giannis, trade Dame, trade Chris Middleton, Brook Lopez, everybody's packing their bags and getting out of there is how, define it. Not on a rookie scale contract, and we can get some picks from you. You're on the market, right? So that's at least how when I hear, blowing it up, that's how I envision it. So again, in my 2 cents, a trade here or there. Maybe it's time for Middleton. Get some assets from him, some young assets. I believe he's in an expiring deal either this year or next year, if I'm not mistaken. Or he just actually got re-signed, if I'm not mistaken, actually. So he might not be expiring for a couple more years. But try to get them back and not full rebuild. Maybe tweak it and yeah, I mean they'll be insane for another coaching change, but. Like I said, I don't Doc is a coach in the NBA anymore. His coaching style is I don't know, 20 years behind now, 15 years at best case scenario, how the game has evolved. So I at least think they need to start with, a different coach. But yeah, I don't buy a full blow up, like I said, fire sale just yet.
Yeah. I mean, the only thing I would say too is that like I feel like if they did even go full like fire sale, like you said, like I feel like that would at least be a better alternative than like them just staying uh like constant
Oh,
as
yeah.
they are right now. Like so like even keeping Doc, keeping, everyone else on the team, like I don't know. It's just they're not looking too great. But
You
um
they make
yeah.
like how they've been showing. Do you think they make the playoffs?
Mm, I I don't even know because like I would, if every other team was playing how they should be in the East, I would say probably not. But like you also have the Sixers who have had a slow start because they have people out, and the Pacers have not played too well, and the Heat are
Hmm.
very mid. So like there's just like so many teams that like you would think should make the playoffs that they're not really doing too well. Like we said, only I think Cleveland, Boston. I mean, New York has played well, given they're still a new team, and Orlando has as well, especially because with Paulo going out recently. So like, I I don't know. There's just I would say they still probably get in. I think Giannis and Dame are just that good, but it's just not looking
Mm,
that great.
yeah. No, I agree. I think it'd be insane for them to miss the playoffs in the East. This was the West. I wouldn't have them in the playoffs anymore, right? But
Yeah.
if they don't make the playoffs in the East, something went way wrong, and everybody's had to be held accountable at that point, right? If they don't make the playoffs in the East.
I mean, right now my Bulls are in the fifth seed, so like I don't know if that'll hold up by the end. But we can move on here to a another one. Victor Wembanyama will make the All Star team. Is that all business or no business?
It's all business. He will be an all-star, and this is my one problem with the all-star team is although I do think without a question he's an all-star caliber player even in his second season, I still think all-star is a popularity contest for the most part,
Mm-hmm.
and he's a great player, and he's popular and marketable for the NBA because of how freaking unicornish is, right. I don't think we'll ever see another player with his type of game and his build and his potential. Obviously he's the best prospect probably since LeBron, and not even more sure than LeBron in a way, right. So I do think he'll be an all-star and he's an all-star caliber player deserving, but this year just looking at the players that are probably still ahead of him as far as productivity goes, and I guess all-star level goes, I think it might be too soon, but I think he'll get in this year because of that popularity contest, like I mentioned. I mean, I still have obviously guys like AD over him, Jokic over him. So I don't think he deserves it just yet, especially with the Spurs still being in that awkward stage where they're still rebuilding, right? Where they're not tanking, but they are tanking in a way, right, to continue to get assets to build for the future. But I think he does this year because, like I said, popularity contest, so it's all business also.
This is an interesting one for me. I mean, I definitely agree. I think that the popularity part of it will help out his case, especially if he's like close, but I'm
Mm-hmm.
probably going to say he won't make it still.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to say no business. I just think, like, I mean, you mentioned, like, the Lakers, they are automatically going to get two All-Stars. Even if Wemby, like, I guess if it comes down to a popularity contest and LeBron or Wemby is the last choice, they're gonna take LeBron, obviously.
Oh yeah.
But
Mm-hmm.
like on top of that, Anthony Davis is leading the league in scoring right now. Like he's definitely gonna make it unless he gets hurt or something like that. I mean, you also look at the front court, like Kevin Durant's in there. Uh, you know, Jokic, of course, he's gonna make it. There's like Sabonis,
Chet, man.
like, and that's another one. See, that's what I was gonna get to as well. Like Chet,
Yeah.
like even though we would think Wemby is the better player and stuff, I would say Chet's had the better season so far, and they're
Mm-hmm.
also playing like the best team in the West. So I think with
Yeah.
that considered, like they might get two All Stars, and like the Spurs, if they're hanging around like 12th or 11th by that time again, I don't know if he'll get in.
It's crowded. The West is always been the superior. Rosters or divisions or teams you want to call it, right? That's just a more competitive conference. So there is a lot of names, a lot of names ahead of him in that pecking order. Um, I think that I just he's gonna have all France, backing him. Obviously, that's his home nation, right? And I say that just seeing the Jokic backing, right? In Serbia, a lot of the Serbian fan base obviously help him vote into the All Star. Which obviously, if Jokic is not an All Star, something's wrong with the Star format from the get go. But taking my Nuggets bias away, right? Obviously, we know that the French vote is going to be a big impact to his overall numbers, right? So you know, I see him being in there, but it'll be interesting to see, man, because like you said, Chet has had a great season, and I don't know, maybe like you said, he's looking at the overall players so far this year. Sure, down the line, Wemby is, we say it without a doubt, probably be the better player, but I mean, Chet's no scrub either. He's definitely the second best player on the Thunder, and you can make the argument that he's probably their best player right now, as far as like their more important player. Sorry, I know Shea is still killing it, obviously,
Mm.
but just the attention that Shea creates down low. He's got a 3-point shot now, and his mid-range game is still there. And on the defensive end, I don't know, man, but you know, Wemby's he'll get in.
I think it's really weird because a good comparison, like situation wise, maybe not like exactly position wise, but like, I feel like Chet and Wemby, if we compare them as Dwayne Wade and LeBron, like when they first came into the league, and last year obviously like Wemby was rookie of the year easily. Same thing with LeBron, but then those next 2 years after that, like uh, Dwayne Wade, one could argue maybe was better than LeBron for those 2 years. I mean, he was the Finals MVP, led his team to a championship, and also had a Shaq like player who was
Mm-hmm.
seen as that guy. And you just mentioned like Chet might be even though Shea's the best player, Chet might be the more important player for their
Yeah.
success. So I feel like that's kind of similar. And then where it's like Wemby is the LeBron in the situation because he doesn't really have the team right now, and he might
Mm-hmm.
be kind of overshadowed by a Chet because Chet's on a better team and Chet's still contributing at a high level. So
Yeah.
I think it's interesting, but yeah, I don't know. I'm gonna say no, though. No business. I know you went with all business. And the last one we can roll with here, and then we'll get into the next topic. So far, the Warriors have started off well. So I personally, maybe you disagree, but I personally didn't believe in them too much before the season. But I'm gonna ask you: the Warriors will finish top six in the West. Is that all business or no business? Right now, they are third.
Hmm. I think it just goes back to what I said, right, with the West being the more difficult conference or the stronger conference. Um, Top six, so not in the play-in. I don't think that's business, man. No business on that. I don't think they have any business being, a guaranteed playoff spot.
Mm.
You know, as amazing as Steph is, and I know he's gonna put up his numbers, and I know Kuminga's out there, and Draymond. For what I've seen, a couple Warrior games that I've caught, and so far he's, somewhat there, I guess, on the defensive side of things, right? And obviously they lost Clay, but top six, I don't see it, man. The West is just too loaded. I mean, in no particular order, to me, the top six of the West would be the Nuggets, the Thunder, the Timberwolves, the Suns, the Lakers, and don't sleep on the Clippers. I think the Clippers did some nice cleanup this offseason. Not, I guess, giving everything the PG-13. So I'm not sleeping on the Clippers. But that I think those are my top six teams right there. So I see them being a playoff team or a play-in team. Sorry,
Mm.
and they'll probably sneak in. Their experience at the end of the day is gonna, probably propel them over a younger team, which I don't even know if it's fair to call them a younger team anymore because they were a surprise a couple seasons ago and they've been a playoff team since then. But maybe the
Mm.
Kings, right? In a play-in matchup, I can see their experience getting them over there. But yeah, top six, they got no business in the top six. Their time has come. It's gone.
Yeah, I agree. They have no business up there. And I think even on top of the teams you mentioned, I think I don't know if you mentioned. I think Dallas and Minnesota maybe are two
Dallas.
are two others
I
that I would
totally
say.
forgot about Dallas.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the Western Conference champions. Yeah. Disrespect for mine right there. Yeah.
So,
You
but,
know,
but like, I mean, just to like, point out, like, there's probably like eight teams I would say over them. Like maybe teams that were on the fence. Like right now, the Pelicans haven't started well, and like they were a team I was maybe a little bit above them. Now Dejounte Murray's hurt. Zion's missed
Mhm.
some games. I don't know why he missed the other night, but he's missing games again per usual. The one thing with the Clippers is that Kawhi's not back right now, and they're pretty low. So it's like I could see those teams being there, but like I still feel like between the Thunder, the Suns, the Grizzlies, the Nuggets, the Timberwolves, the Mavericks, like that's probably six right there. And then you mentioned like the Lakers are playing good. I think the Rockets could be a sneaky team. I think the Kings, if they put it together, could be sneaky. But I don't think they will be above the play-in. They could definitely be in the play-in, but not above it.
Yeah. No, they're a playing team. I think they're at that spot right now where they're not bad enough to be a rebuilding team or a tanking team or a team that's subpar, but they're not good enough anymore to be a for sure penciled into the playoffs, right? Like I said, they might sneak in, from the play in, but I mean, as we've seen the last couple of years, they're a playing team. That's just where they're at now. They're not a bona fide playoff team anymore.
Yeah. Well, tough times for them. As a non-Warriors fan, I couldn't care less. But it is what it is. Well, we can move on to the next actual segment. The Run Into the Ground NBA edition. We're going to have three players that we think are going to be asked to carry a heavy burden for their teams this season. And maybe we've already seen it in the first, handful of games, but there's three players in specific. I'll let you, if you want to name your three first, and then I'll name my three afterwards. Like, who are the three players that you look at and you're like, man, this guy has to do everything just for them to be, have a chance. So, like, what are you thinking?
Yeah, man. When I was prepping for this, my first two names were, I thought about them right away. Without a question. And my third name, I've kind of been going back and forth, so I'll save my third name for last. And I hate to start out this way, but the number one is Jokic, man. I absolutely hate seeing the fact that he's playing 38, 39, 40 minutes a game. 43, I think it was the other day in the Brooklyn Nets overtime game. I absolutely hate it. That as a Nugget fan, that this man, I don't know what it is, man. That if you're a Denver Nugget, the moment you stop playing with Jokic, you forget how to play basketball. Like the bench is just that bad that literally Jokic needs to run up the score as much as he can, let the bench blow it so that the team can be competitive. And I just absolutely hate it because I mean, sure, Jokic is only 29, but he's a bigger dude. He's a center. You don't want to put that many miles on that body. I mean, I know I've always thought that Jokic's game is gonna age like fine wine, but at the end of the day, miles are miles. And that's so many miles on that body that you know I just don't want him to get run down till playoff time happens, right? And I
Right.
mean, if just the way that it's been, and I know these last couple games have been a lot better. Michael Porter has stepped up. AG is shooting out of his mind the last two games. Christian Brown is just being a monster, but I mean, it just kind of goes back to what we were saying about Jamal and where he's at. If Jamal is not Jamal Murray until playoff time, I mean, I mean, just being straight up, the Nuggets are going to need Jokic to play probably 36, 37 minutes a game, average, 30 plus points a game, average a triple dub, honestly. And I do think the Nuggets roster is just too good, or at least Jokic is too good. I mean, we saw him take Facundo Campazzo to the playoffs for all sakes. No disrespect to Facu, but I mean the dude's not an NBA player for a reason. And we saw him take him and Austin Rivers to the playoffs, and even get to the second round without Jamal and without Michael Porter. So I just I hate that he's in there, as a Nugget fan, selfishly speaking, but he's there, unfortunately. The other name, I mean, we kind of talked to him about a little bit already, but Giannis, all eyes are on him. And is Giannis still a top three player in the NBA? I mean, on paper, I would say so, right? At least before this season, it was Jokic, Luka, and Giannis, or Jokic and Luka, or Jokic and Giannis. Sorry, however you wanted to see it. But is the freak still a top five player in the NBA? Is he still a top 10 player? I mean, right now, the answer is no, right?
Right.
And we was already talking about them as far as if they'll even make the playoffs, and he's just too good to not be there. And I think similar to when Michael Porter and Jamal were out for the Nuggets, it's his time to show that. Sure, he has a great roster with Damian Lillard and Middleton, and other complementary pieces, well older, but pieces that fit him nicely. But can he take a subpar team to the playoffs, right? Or a team with chemistry issues or coaching issues, right? Whatever the case is, if he can do that this year, take him to the playoffs and further, I mean that to me cements him as legit one of the greatest players as well of all time. And if he can't, I'm not saying his MVP or his championship was a fluke, but maybe he's not, on the same level as say a Jokic or things like that. So I think, he's another player that we got to keep our eyes on to see if he is him or if he isn't him, for better lack of wording.
I like that
And
wording. Go ahead
yeah,
with the third one.
and then for my last name, man, like I said, the first two came easy to me, right?
Mm.
And for this one, I kind of went back and forth a lot, but I think I'm gonna settle with Paul George. Yes, he's joining a brand new team with the Sixers, right? For him, I don't even know what the hell is going on with Embiid anymore, right? Is this dude playing? Is he not playing? I mean, I'd love to work part time and get paid $50 million a year, So I just think the fact that there's so many question marks about Joel Embiid. Just his health in general has always been a question mark. But now, how he feels his own availability, how he's going to load manage, this own season and things like that. I mean, it's just a question mark. So I think all eyes and the pressure is going to be on PG-13, and I mean, let's just be honest. He hasn't had this type of pressure since he was with the Pacers. He's always had, another player of his caliber or better, right? Depending on how you look at Russ and his early Kawhi days, right?
Mm.
I mean, he even had Russ and a late prime Melo to an extent, right? When it was Hoodie Melo and OKC days. So
Even when he
now he's
had
back.
Danny Granger for a little bit before he got hurt. So
Yeah, but there was still that period, though, right, when Danny Granger was hurt,
right.
when he wasn't Danny Granger
Mm.
anymore, the All Star. That before he transitioned over to the Thunder, before that trade happened, that he was the man for a couple seasons, And I know he's obviously, I think he's what 34, 35. I know he's a lot up there in age as compared to, when that was back with the Pacers 10 or so years ago, but. I mean, does he still have the stuff? And I think with all the question marks involving the Sixers and their legit bona fide superstar in Joel, I think the pressure is going to be on him. And I mean, they gave this dude a max contract at this age. It's time for him to produce. Also, if he's I'm not going to say number one option because when Embiid's out there, he's clearly the number one option, and obviously you got Tyrese Maxey and things like that. But I do think he's going to have that pressure. So that's my three: Jokic, Giannis, and PG-13.
That is a very interesting group of three. So I technically have like four written down here because if in case you picked all three the same as me, I was gonna say the fourth one. Um, so two of them are the same. The third one was different, but I'm still gonna say the one I have third here because I think it's interesting. First one I have is Jokic. I think it's pretty self-explanatory. Just the nuggets around them, like the last few years, it's losing guys like Bruce Brown, you lose KCP, and Jamal doesn't look the same. And I've always said too, like I don't think it was so much the point that they lost those players in free agency. It's just the fact that you lost them, and then what did you replace them with? Like there's not really a lot of players that could fit their role to replace them. You're kind of just banking on your draft picks to do that. But some of these guys don't really have that experience. I know Christian Brown's a champion on every level, so that's why he's really started the season off pretty well. But some of these other guys really haven't been in that limelight as much. So that's why it's hard to bank on that, just throwing them into the fire like that. And just on top of that, MPJ has shown his struggles. I know Aaron Gordon's played pretty well to start the year. Westbrook's had some high moments, but I feel like he's most of the time struggled so far with the team. So there's just going to be a lot that Jokic is going to have to deal with this season. I also think Giannis, as you said, dude, they literally I don't know if you saw that. I think it was against the Grizzlies. They lost by 25 or 30 points. He had a neutral plus minus. He had one of the most efficient 30-point games I've seen in a long time, at least even from Giannis. I think he went 17 to 22, and they still got blown out. Mm-hmm. That's just crazy to me. You know what I mean? And it's just it's what more can he do too? But as you mentioned, guys like Jokic have been in this situation. Is he going to be able to do that as well? That's why I feel like one could argue maybe right now he even has a bigger burden to carry. Especially because it seems in a bigger hole. But we're going to see if he can actually do that. And the third one, actually, it's funny you mentioned Paul George. I had on here Tyrese Maxey. I had on here Tyrese Maxey because we know the whole thing with Joel Embiid. This is honestly, to start the season, probably the worst start to a season that Joel Embiid's had in 5 years, and he hasn't even played a game yet.
Yeah.
Just from the point of you're not healthy again, but you were healthy to play in the Olympics. He's over here beefing with reporters, and I heard he got into an altercation or shoved a columnist or something like that. He's talking about not playing back-to-backs ever again. Just there's so much that he's just talking way too much about. It's first or second year Joel Embiid, more than the Embiid that won MVP that laser in focused on just straight up playing games and winning games. So I feel like he's doing a lot of nonsense right now. And I also put Maxey because the thing with Paul George is and this is why I don't get so many people will say, well, the Clippers messed up. They let Paul George walk. Okay, obviously it's not great that you lose a guy maybe like Paul George's caliber, and as much as we say because Kawhi's injured and everything like that, if we're the media, let's not act like Paul George was super healthy either. He had a surgery the first year with the team. He had knick-knack injuries the second year, missed almost all the third year. He got hurt for the end of the season and the playoffs the fourth year. And then the fifth year, I know he didn't miss many games last season, but when he did miss games, the team played their best. So I don't think we can completely say he's going to be ruled out from injuries. He also had one his first season in OKC. We know when he broke his leg in Indiana. So it's he's definitely had an injury history himself. And so that's why I picked Tyrese Maxey, because this is a guy who probably is going to play just about every game. He's going to be playing heavy minutes, and he's going to be playing hard. He probably plays hard as one of the top 5-10 hardest playing guys in the whole league. So the fact that he's going to be out there almost every game you don't know if Paul George is going to be there, and you more likely don't even know if Embiid's going to be there. Like, I had to put him on here because I'm like, dude, he's going to be so exhausted by the end of this season.
Hmm. Yeah, I can see that, and when I was thinking about like I mentioned the question, and a few names came to mind, and I did think about Maxi for just a little bit, but maybe it's just my how I interpreted the acquisition right of PG-13. To
Mm,
me, it was always for him to be second fiddle right to Joel Embiid. So you bring up amazing points with the injuries, and obviously that's true, and you know. Like I even said, he's not the Paul George of 10, even 5 years ago. Obviously, his prime, and his athleticism is going to start to decline, more and more than it already has. I mean, that's just the nature of father time. Unless you're LeBron James, right? You're not going to, and even LeBron's not going to beat it. But most players are gonna be hit in the face with the reality that they're not the same player anymore. But I still think he has enough in the tank to be the second option or the second most important player to the Sixers. Like if I'm a Philadelphia 76ers fan, right, in my perfect world where Embiid's playing, you know, Paul George is getting around 25, 26 points a game. Maybe that's too high, but maybe around 23, 24 points per game, right? And Maxi's getting in the high teens, low 20s. I mean, obviously, Maxi's not, a scrub himself. He's an all-star also, right? Rightly so.
mm,
But to me, just when that whole acquisition happened with PG going to the Sixers, I always saw it to be, Joel's right hand man or the second fiddle to Joel or his Robin to his Batman. But I think it'll be interesting which one actually does have that that responsibility. One of them is going to. I completely agree that all eyes should be on the Sixers as far as for this type of question. That one of them is going to have that burden and be into the ground. It's just going to be a question: is it going to be Paul George or is it going to be Tyrese?
yeah, and the other thing I will say, like the fourth person I did have on here, but I didn't really put on my list was Anthony Davis, just because I do think while the Lakers have played well, like AD has also played like exceptionally well. You know what I mean? Like, and he can do that, but it's like he really needs to do that, and he needs to be healthy for a majority of the season for them to have a chance. Like they started off the season well. They've lost a few games now since, but like if he's not playing like that, like they lose a lot of these games. Some of their games have been really close. So it's
Hmm.
like that's another reason why I have him on here because I feel like if he's not like that either, like it's just gonna be, a Hollywood storyline for LeBron and his son, like just for this season. You know what I mean? Which I
Yeah.
think it is going to regardless, but it's like I think AD is like you even heard him say after opening night, he's like, this is the first time we got a win in a LeBron moment. You know what I mean? Like since he's been on the team, like I think he's just wants to compete. You know what I mean? So
Yeah. Now I think AD is a hell of a player, but yeah, he's had a hot start. But I always joke around when I see a crazy shot that AD's out there having PTSD somewhere from where Jokic hit that ridiculous behind the back step back three in the Western Conference Finals, right? Game four. So he just needs Papa Jokic to humble him a little bit, and he'll be back to, more real, more. Laker fans are gonna hate me, but more realistic stats, I guess, for what AD should be producing probably at this point of his career. Especially given some of the injuries he's had. But it's funny you mention AD because my honorable mention was LeBron or the other guy that I thought, because I don't know if the Lakers. I mean, sure, JJ Redick has got them playing a lot better than Darvin Ham did, but you know, I don't have much confidence in the Lakers roster.
no,
It looks better, but it's still a lot of the same roster that they've had the last couple seasons, which in my viewpoint overperformed. Especially when they made the Western Conference Finals, I thought they had no business being there.
right.
Again, Laker fans might hate me for that, but I think they've just overperformed because of LeBron James, or at least top two, worst case top three of all time in LeBron. So
Yeah.
that was going to be my quote unquote honorable mention, or the other name I kind of bounced here and there.
Yeah, it's just funny how you had a Laker, I had a Laker, you had a Sixer, I had a Sixer, but we had two different people for
Yeah.
those ones. It's just kind of crazy.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, we'll have to see for sure. I think those two teams, especially, like, there's definitely going to be a lot of pressure on the players, like because one, like we said, there's just a lot going on with Philly right now, and then for the Lakers, like it is still a new coach with Redick as well. I think there's going to be times in the season where he's you know, trying to make adjustments that he's not prepared for. And I'm sure he'll figure it out eventually, like most people do. But it's gonna like kind of hit him kind of in the face a little bit, and he's not gonna be ready for it. So then guys like AD or LeBron need to step up. The role guys, probably will, but I don't know how consistent it will be. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
So, um,
Yeah.
but yeah, if you want, we can move on to the next topic. I think this one is going to be really interesting because we're going to get a few names in here that are players that maybe aren't talked about enough. So the young but not forgotten segment. So we're each going to give one NBA player who's pretty young. Could be second, third, fourth, or anything like that. Year player, and you think they have legit upside to make some noise this season. Maybe they've already played well to start the year, but maybe they didn't get much of a chance like last season or something like that. Or maybe they don't have much of a chance right now, and you think in a few weeks or months they will. Who is that player for you?
Whenever we talk, I try to stay as far as possible from Nugget stuff because I
Mhm.
feel like that makes me feel like such a homer. And he's not a Nugget anymore, but the fact that this dude is not getting playing time, at least last time I was following his Los Angeles Clippers, man, is it just blows my mind. But young and not forgotten to me is Nashawn Bones Highland, man. I just look at him when he was a Nugget, and he had so much upside, so much potential. He wasn't like your traditional point guard that you might want off the bench,
Mm,
but I mean, his game, and not just appearance wise, you could say that, but even just his actual game looks so much to me, at least back in the day, like Tyrese Maxey in a way, and just the way he would shoot shots. I will never forget. He hit two back to back threes against the Warriors in the playoffs, both from screens from Jermichael Green. And one of them was even, I think, like a crossover step back that he just shot and didn't even move the net.
mm,
And this dude's not getting playoff time or play time anymore on the Clippers. That to me was just insane because I mean this kid can ball, and I mean that's why I just keep saying young but not forgotten to me, because his talent is there. I just think he needs an opportunity. And I mean, I know if you follow his personal life, he had a lot of battles that he had to fight, especially I think like a fire or something if I'm not mistaken.
mhm,
So dude's a fighter, and I just don't understand how he's not getting minutes. I know he was kind of up and down last season when he did play for the Clippers, but I think the dude has the talent to be a consistent, NBA player, at least an offensive weapon. But that to me is the main name where I was surprised when the Nuggets faced the Clippers in game two of their season, and my guy rode the bench. I think he should be getting minutes, and I think he could definitely produce for the Clippers now that they've lost some offensive power, right? With PG going over to the Sixers, with Kawhi being out, with them even losing Russell Westbrook, right? I mean, Russ was still averaging some nice points for them. Efficiency aside, he was still getting some buckets for the Clippers last year, and they've lost all this scoring power. And like I said, you have this dude that hit an amazing shot. Not just that shot, but I mean, just every time I picture his game from a Nugget, the dude had offensive power, and
mhm.
my guy's not getting minutes. So that right there is my pick, Nashawn Bones Highland, man. It's criminal he's not getting any playing time right now.
Yeah, I mean, it is kind of weird. I do think, it is. It's kind of unfortunate because, like you said, like he had a lot of upside. I think, like when he was on the Nuggets for sure. The one thing I will say in regards to that is I feel like he plays very fast. And I think so far the Clippers have been playing like they're bottom 10 in pace right now so far this season. So I think like maybe they want to go that direction. Like kind of more of a like slowish tempo. And usually we know this like who's running their team right now on the court. It's Harden. And like
Right.
most Harden teams like play that style because everything's in the half court, you know what I mean? So I just feel like it's hard for him to find a spot there. Maybe if he goes to another team and he could be a guy off the bench that can provide a spark, because I even said like when he was in Denver, I think like he has the potential to, I don't know if he could ever be like a starter or anything like that, but I think he could be a six-man scorer or something
Yeah.
like that, like what you see with Malik Monk. Like Malik Monk didn't have a great start to his career in Charlotte. I think that Lakers year really bolstered him up, and now look at him on the Kings. Like he's a pretty consistent guy off the bench.
Yeah.
I think that maybe the right situation Bones Highland could be. I think it's just hard to on the Clippers though. Although I will say he should be like between him and Kevin Porter Jr., I would be giving him minutes over Kevin Porter Jr., bro. he
Yeah.
stinks. Like, no disrespect to Kevin Porter Jr., but like, and this is gonna sound crazy, but maybe someone should arrest him for how bad he is. That would be, and that wouldn't even be the first time he
It
has been
wouldn't
arrested.
be the
So,
first time. Yeah, no.
uh,
Yeah, no, I see what you mean about Bones. And maybe you're right with the tempo. He is a fast player, so maybe
mm,
he does need to change the scenery. And his game reminds me a lot of Jamal Crawford, probably the best
yeah,
six man of all time in the NBA. You could make that argument, right? Or at least
mm,
up there. So hopefully he gets to change the scenery, or hopefully, Ty Lue, from my eyes, recognizes that, okay, maybe you can't play him with Harden because of the half court and how Harden controls the ball. But he's young and he's not forgotten to me. Like I said, he should be out there getting some minutes.
yeah. No, I understand that for sure. My choice actually was somebody on the Pelicans. I'm going with, and he's gotten an opportunity right now because people are out. But I'm gonna go with Jordan Hawkins. I know he's a second year player.
Mhm.
Just from watching, like he. It's weird to see like a young player, like a second year player, not too phased by the game. Maybe I'm saying that because like I'm a Bulls fan, and I'm so used to my players like on my team taking 3 or 4 years before, or 5 years before they actually like reach that curve of like not being phased by things like that. But he really isn't, and he's like not afraid to take big shots. He's not afraid to take many shots. Like last season, he only had 5 games where he scored 17 points or more. This season, he's already had 5 games like that, and the season's 2 weeks old. So I feel like he's definitely, as players come back, his shot opportunities will probably go down a little bit. But I do think he's going to have a big role in this team, especially with DeJounte Murray out for a little bit. Like, I think he could establish himself at least as like the sixth man by the end of the year once, because CJ didn't play the other night, Zion didn't play the other night. Once those guys are in the lineup and DeJounte Murray is back, like he might be that main guy off the bench for them. So, and I think he has the potential to be one of the better shooters in his draft class too. So, yeah, I'm gonna go with Jordan Hawkins for my pick.
And I think because he's a second year player, right? He's
Yeah.
not somebody that I would have considered, but his game reminds me a lot of a young Wes Matthews. I'm talking like Portland Blazers before he went over to the Mavs. That's kind of how his game reminds me. And I don't remember if Wes Matthews was coming off the bench back then in that time, but he was providing a spark for them offensively, right? When the Blazers couldn't get anything going back then, obviously then transitions over to the Mavs, and I don't know if he was the second option per se, but to the extent he was at least the top three option. So maybe there's some similarities there, but I think it's too soon for me to say on that young but not forgotten, or at least how I interpreted the question that you were
Mm-hmm.
telling me.
Yeah.
But I do think he is a young, promising player that will make some noise. And I mean, you can call me a casual if you like, but Scotty Barnes to me came out of nowhere.
Right.
He had a couple good games, and all things. The next thing I knew, he was an all-star. I don't know if we'll see that same type of trajectory, but maybe we will. And at least six man of the year, or up there in the conversations, maybe.
Mm.
But who knows? Dude's got a good career up ahead of him, right? Only being a second-year man and making some noise this season.
Yeah. I think the only reason I considered him for like a young but not forgotten is that I believe he was picked like 14th in the draft, like just at the end of the lottery, and then I mean even last season like he really didn't have much of a chance. I feel like people going into this season like they were more talking about like the DeJounte Murray edition
Yeah.
and even me personally like I like the Javonte Green edition too for the Pelicans. So like those are the biggest things maybe, and then like it's like well he's still here too, and so far he's probably played like their second best player this season so far. I know it's still
Mm-hmm.
early, but yeah, and it's funny you mentioned Scotty Barnes because the only other person I was going to mention or consider for this, he's a second year player too, but I think he even had like a worse rookie season. I wouldn't say he was so much forgotten, but I think last year people thought like he was going to be on a trajectory of a bust, but I was going to say like Grady Dick, but he's actually played really well so far this season. Although I
Yeah.
think the only reason I picked Jordan Hawkins is his opportunity to like maximizing opportunity ratio might be a little bit better, if that even makes sense. I don't even
Yeah,
know.
yeah. No, yeah. He's got more opportunity, and
Yeah.
and obviously the Raptors aren't a playoff team, so
Mm,
he can obviously have a role on the playoff team, which not many young guys do. Like you mentioned, a lot of young guys, not just on the Bulls. I mean, even on the Nuggets, I see it now. They don't know what to do with the ball when they're at this stage of their career, right? Or they get overwhelmed. The game's too fast for them. I mean, that's just the reality of things, right? The game is still too fast for them, and there's just some guys that it slows down a lot faster than others. So yeah, I respect it.
For sure. But yeah, if you want, we can move on to this next segment. This is the honor of the week. So I usually pick a former player that has a kind of a birthday like nearby in when the episode is released, and we're recording this on Monday. So I think this guy's birthday was yesterday, if I'm not mistaken. It was either yesterday or it was 2 days ago. But I'm gonna give you 1 minute. You can kind of just talk as much as you'd like about this said player. And yeah, it should be pretty good. And I'll add my thoughts a little bit afterwards. But are you ready?
I'm ready, man.
All right. So you'll like this one because this is a former Nuggets player, your player. And as soon as I say the name, you can just start talking about him. The player is Ty Lawson.
Man, so Ty Lawson, man. My first memory that comes up to mind is I believe it was still his rookie year, and they were facing the Lakers, and my guy just posterizes DJ Mabanga. Like I remember the local broadcasting team, Chris Marlowe and Scott Hastings, just say something like, "All I want for Christmas is a Ty Lawson jersey." And young me back when I was young and beautiful, that's what I went to go do. I went to go buy a Ty Lawson jersey. I know he's had his share of problems off the court, and the way his NBA career felt a little Allen Iverson-ish in a way, kind of similar to Carmelo's in a way. Also, it's kind of weird that era of Nugget in a way kind of had abrupt ends to at least their NBA careers. And obviously Ty probably had the quote unquote most demons of off the court. And if I go over a minute, just stop me, man, because I could talk all day about Ty Lawson. But just so many fond memories. I think he was an all-star snub also. The year that the Nuggets won 57 games when they had Iguodala. Sure, they had Gallinari, and maybe Gallinari, looking back, was probably their most important player, which is why they ultimately got not swept, sorry, but they lost to the Warriors in that playoff. Plus obviously some other shade with Iguodala that's been rumored since then, right? But
that is the minute mark, by the way. But you can finish your point.
That is the minute mark.
You can finish your point.
all I was gonna say though is to me, Ty was always a good player. I think he had a couple All-Star snubs there, and he had a lot of highs as the Nuggets. Like I said, that dunk on Mabanga, I believe it was 10 3-pointers against the Timberwolves without a miss, if I recall correctly. And in an era where guys were getting bigger. If I recall, Ty's 5'10", 5'11". He wasn't over the 6 foot mark, and to still be able to impact the game. When my last thought that I'll just end with this: when the Nuggets made the trade with Carmelo and sent Chauncey Billups over to the Knicks, I was fully confident with giving the keys to Ty as the point guard, to lead the Nuggets to the future. So sad how his career ended, but great player, great fond memories as a Nugget fan, and happy birthday to Ty if his birthday was just a couple days ago or when it was. But good memories of a young Willy G.
Yes, yes, sir. I was just trying to look. Yeah, his birthday was yesterday. Turned 37, which is crazy. Could still be playing too. Yeah, that's the one thing too. It's like we talk about a lot of these smaller guards like Isaiah Thomas, and you know what I mean. Like even like I know he's listed 6 foot. He's probably shorter than that. But Chris Paul, but Ty Lawson as well. Like was one of those guys. Like I think he received MVP shares one year. Like there's a lot of great players in the league that have never gotten that achievement. It's just. I remember like there were a few seasons, like as you mentioned, when they had like Gallinari, the season they had Iggy, Kenneth Faried, and those guys. Like he was up there like top 2, top 3 in the league in assists per game. And like that's pretty crazy to me. I think too, like even though I would say Ty Lawson was a better player than Lance Stevenson, I think maybe like Denver fit him just as like Indiana fit Lance Stevenson in a way. And so it's like. I think that's why maybe like once he went to Houston and everything like it maybe didn't go the same way. But yeah, man, he was a really good player. Like I feel like not enough people like he's kind of could I say old but forgotten? We just said the young but forgotten. He's I guess like older but forgotten, unfortunately, because he was really good.
Yeah. Now he for sure was, man, and like I said, young me has a lot of fond memories, and and I do think he should have been an All-Star. And I totally forgot about the MVP shares that he had a couple seasons, right?
Mm,
Fastest dude that I've seen.
yeah.
That dude could get from side to side of the court in seconds. And it's a shame. Brian Shaw, one of the millions of crimes that he did to us Nugget fans was, you know, how he handled the Ty Lawson and Andre Miller situation also. And, obviously the guy got fired for a reason. And like I said, the Nuggets had their own demons with Ty Lawson's off the court behavior. But, prime Ty Lawson, like I said, from dunking on Mbanga to 10 threes to hitting the mid range over KD, I could talk all day about Ty.
Yeah. And the one thing too is, I mean, I think you're familiar with how fond I am of my guy Gallinari, but like I would even say like in those middle years, like I think Gallinari became the best player on the Nuggets like maybe 2014, 15-ish roughly, but before that, like when Ty Lawson was on the team, I still think like he was the main player. Maybe the year
Yeah.
Iggy was there, you could argue, but like I still feel like even before that, like it was kind of he was the guy on the team, like post Mello and like before he ended up leaving and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, and they had good seasons there. Tied for I think last season, what you guys tied the franchise record for wins, right? And
Yep,
that's from
57.
that 2013 season. So
Yep.
couldn't have been possible without Ty Lawson. So shout out to him.
Yeah. Shout out to Ty.
But if you want, we can move on to the mini game. Talking about another legendary point guard, my guy D Rose. As I said to you, and I've said in all the other episodes, this season's kind of about honoring him because he is my favorite player of all time. So I'm gonna give you. There's gonna be 5 questions. So basically, how it'll work is every question you can get 10 points. The first and the last question, it's either all or nothing. You'll only have one guess on every question, though. Now, the first all or nothing question should be relatively easy. The last all or nothing question should be borderline impossible level. And then the questions 2, 3, and 4, that you can get up to 10 points. But they're all going to be numerical based. And so, however far away you are, you could get partial credit. So, like, let's say you're like 3 away from whatever it is. Instead of 10 points, you get 7 points. If you're 4 away, you get 6 points. 5 away, 5 points. Something like that.
Gotcha.
The max score is 50 points, and we'll see how you can do.
All right.
So, are you ready?
I'm ready, man.
All right. So the first one should be relatively easy. I feel like this play has been shown a lot, but so Derrick Rose, he hit a playoff game-winning buzzer beater against one team. Which was that team?
The Boston Celtics.
The playoff. Right. So it was like a game-winning shot.
Oh,
no,
so it wasn't a buzzer beater?
Well, no, that was a block. I think you're referring to.
Was it a playoff game you said, or no playoff game?
It was a playoff game.
Did they match up against the Pistons? I'm going to say the Pistons. That's my final answer.
You're going to lock in the Pistons?
I'm going to lock in the Pistons.
Dang, that is tough. It is not the Pistons.
Not the Pistons?
Oh,
man.
It was the Cavaliers.
All right.
Yeah, because he hit the bank shot like fading away over Tristan Thompson, and then LeBron was like under the basket looking like, you know what? That's where the when he had the straight face meme. Like, I don't know if you remember ever seeing that. So
I think I do. Yeah.
So that is tough, but that doesn't mean you're out of it or anything like that. So there's still other questions you can get points on. So the second one I'll ask you is, so every year you are off, you'll be like 1 point less, but if you get it right on the dot, you'll get 10 points.
Okay.
When Derrick Rose signed his Adidas deal in 2012, how many years did he sign with them for? It was a pretty long contract, I'll say. So
I want to say it was 7 years.
You're going to lock in 7 years?
I'm going to lock in 7 years.
So it was not 7 years. You still did get 3 points. It was 14 years. Yeah.
Multiple of 7. Okay.
Okay. So the third question, this one's going to be a little bit hard. And every 2% you are off will be 1 point less that you earn. If you get it right on the dot, then you'll get a point. I'm actually going to round this to the nearest actual percent because that would be crazy. Like if I had it to the tenths, I'm like, there's no way he's going to guess it to the tenths. Like that's
Right.
not even fair. Okay, so what percent of games did Derrick Rose start in his career? So like,
All his career.
yep,
All his
all of
career.
his career. Like what percent of all the games did he start? And for every 2% you're away, you'll get subtracted one less point, but we'll see.
Is this also counting? I guess. Well, no, it's just games played. I'm assuming. I was gonna say like obviously he had his ACL injury season where he missed the whole season.
Right. So
Um,
of all the games he played, like, and then what percent did he start of those?
I'm gonna go with like. Ah, man. Go with like 38%, man.
You're gonna go 38%. Now I will say,
Mm.
before you guess or lock it in or anything, like so the games he missed do kind of, I guess, skew his percent more in favor of like he's started a higher percentage of games then. So
Okay.
because like that those wouldn't be
Then
counted. So
gotcha. Okay, gotcha. Then I'm gonna go probably like it's just because obviously post injury, D Rose he had his high moments, but he wasn't the same anymore, right? And unfortunately, probably not a starter as consistently as you would like. Especially with the Knicks and the T Wolves, even with the Grizzlies, obviously before he retired.
so then you gotta factor if those amount of games outweigh the ones he
Yeah,
started with the Bulls and the Knicks that season and Cleveland for a few.
yeah, I'm gonna go probably with like 54% then, and that's what I'm locking in. I think a little bit more than half of his career he was a legit starter, but nothing too substantial. So I'm gonna go 54%.
So you're rolling 54%.
Yep, rolling the dice, 54.
Okay. So uh, it was a good idea to change it because you got points. If you hadn't changed it, you wouldn't have got any points. Uh, but it was still much higher than that. It was
Still much.
72% of games. Yeah. Uh,
Wow.
it's definitely skewed a bit because of how many games he, didn't play,
Hmm.
And I do think like with him having like a few injuries the last like 2-3 seasons, like that also like brought down the non-starting games a little bit. Because he was relatively healthy, like the Timberwolves year and then the Pistons year, and
Hmm.
that second Knicks season too. But so you still got 2 points for that because you were 18% away. So yeah. Now number 4. We'll see if you can get this one. How many times did Derrick Rose play against the Denver Nuggets in his career? I got a factor, different conference for a decent
Hmm.
amount of it. So that's about 2 games a year, but also the injuries and
And this is games that he legit played in, right? Not just when he was on the roster and the teams matched up, right? This is
correct
legit played.
games that he's
Okay.
played in. Yep.
Yeah, so obviously he was also on a division rival for a couple of years with the Timberwolves. Most of his career, though, on the opposite side of the conference or conferences. Obviously, they never met in the playoffs with D Rose on the roster. I'm gonna go 32 times.
You're gonna go 32 times.
Yeah, and I'm locking that in.
Okay. So it is not 32 times. The correct answer is 21 times.
I was thinking the 20s. I should have stuck in the 20s. Yep.
Yeah. So every two, I forgot to say, every 2 games you were away from that, like, was an extra point docked. So you did get 4 points. I'm pretty sure if I'm doing the math correct. You got 4 points on that one because you were 11 away. So, okay. So right now, I believe you're sitting at 9 points. So the last question out of 60. Now, this is the all or nothing question. This one's going to be impossible level. We'll see if you can get it. So out of the 60 maximum points for all defensive voting in 2011, how many points did Rose receive for the honor that year? So you're basically just figuring out a number between 0 and 60. It could also be 0, but considering I thought out this question, it probably isn't. And I will tell you, if it helps out, he did not make an all-defensive team that year. So
I'm going to go right in the middle with 30.
You're going with 30?
Yeah, locking that in.
So unfortunately, it is not 30. that one was just really hard. It was 14. But the thing that's interesting is people don't realize, like, that year he was the closest person to making all defensive that didn't. So like I think that's kind of unique because, like, people maybe sometimes don't consider him like an elite defender or anything like that, but like during his MVP season he was also up there, you know what I mean? So yeah. So overall you got 3 points for the second one, you got 2 for the third one, 4 for the fourth one, which brings your total to 9 points. How do you feel?
I feel like I need to do more homework on Derrick Rose. Obviously, I know he was a hell of a player in his prime prior to the injury, but when you go down to specifics like that, I guess I need to do a lot more homework on D Rose. But hey, whenever you want to have a Carmelo type game like this, I'm sure I'll knock that one out of the park, at least way better than I did here, because that's, my favorite player of all time. So yeah, no, I mean, I feel like I did decent enough for just looking at the fact, obviously, right, me being a Nugget fan, and most games that I watched were against Western Conference teams, just they matched up more frequent, like you mentioned yourself. So, enjoy retirement, D-Rose, but I got to do a little bit more homework on you next time.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, like, they were all kind of like tricky-ish questions to know exactly. I think the only one, maybe the first one, would have been just because of like that playoff game winner. But
what year was that?
2015.
The playoff winner?
2015.
Yeah, man, I don't remember it. Like, I remember the memes, but I honestly didn't remember it. I think you can even say this is an excuse or a cop out, but I wasn't following basketball too much because the Nuggets were complete doo-doo those couple years, right, before we got Jokic. So, I was a casual those couple seasons from probably when we were talking about LAWSON, right, and that season that they had when they won 57 games up until probably Jokic. It's funny with Jokic, actually, just a real quick side note, I got back into being a diehard, if you want to say that, when they drafted Moutier, because I was all big on Moutier, and I thought that was going to be even here in Colorado and Denver, they had a slogan saying it's a new day, rhyming with Moutier in a way. So that's kind of what drew me back into it when they drafted Moutier, but who would have known that it was actually their second round pick from the year prior that was going to be, best player of all time in the franchise. So that's going to be my cop out answer, though, that, I wasn't following basketball too hard those couple seasons when we were in total, total question marks as a Nugget Nation. So that's my cop out answer, though.
That is fair. I do think with some of these as well, especially like those, I think he did play the Nuggets a decent amount of times around that stretch too. So that makes sense why like maybe that was a little off there as well. But yeah, I think it was still pretty decent. You got points for 3 of them. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think it's very, it's very hard because like I'm thinking of questions like to make for all these too, and it's like it's my favorite players. So like a lot of these things like might seem like super obvious to me, but it's like, if something like this was asked about like a Carmelo Anthony or like a random other player, like I probably would have to either think about it a little bit, or maybe I like wouldn't know like what deal he signed for how many years, you know what I mean?
Right.
So it's tough.
Yeah. No, I respect it, though. I respect it. D Rose, like I said, hell of a player, and hoping he's enjoying retirement. Dude deserved it. So, hell of a player.
Yes, sir. And once again, appreciate you hopping on, joining me for this episode. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. If you did, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. You got any other final thoughts before we close the deal here?
Nah, as I always say, man, enjoy basketball, go watch ball, go play ball. Ball's life. You know, just enjoy some basketball. And it was a long off season for me as a Nugget fan, so I'm glad to have ball back. So just like I said, enjoy basketball, everybody.
And if you go play basketball, you might be playing against Willy G because he's getting back in the playing now these days.
Yeah, I'm in a rec league. I'm in a over 30 men's rec league right now. So we're getting cooked out on the field or out on the court, but it's just good to be out there with some guys and get some shots up. So just hit me up if you want to play ball. Always down for ball.
Sir, we might need to get the 1v1 one of these days.
Yes, sir.
But yeah, appreciate you being on once again. Hope you guys enjoyed. Thank you guys for watching, and we're out. Peace.